soaked in blood. The Unabomber blowing up. Waco, Texas, and Heaven's Gates. Aliens modified, meant for mapes. Hitler faked his death and then escaped. Bigfoot and the Mothman. Son of Sam talking to dogs again. Witches, ghosts, and goblins. Mysterious noise and hauntings. Dark arts and the skull and bones. Most celebrities are probably cloned. So if you're feeling all alone, crack a beer and get stoned. I welcome you to the podcast Strange Brew. We're here to entertain you. We're here to entertain you.
It's about to get strange.
You're damn fucking tootin', it's gonna get strange.
You need to write me an intro song like that.
You know what I was just thinking about? Because I've been writing some very offensive songs. One, I'm sure some people are going to find super offensive when I get it done. But, you know, I write about the things I care about and want to speak out against, so that's what I do. But I was thinking of writing a horror movie rap. And I'm thinking that we could probably do one for Class Horrorcast for a fun alternate intro kind of thing. And I could do a short version and then do an extended version of like a full song. I'm trying to think of how I started. Like I was like thinking, travel through the mind of a horror fan. But then I was like, should I just start off of being like, I got a kitchen knife like a Michael Myers. I'm gonna cut you until you expire. I don't know, something, you know.
Was that just off the top of your head
Yeah.
now?
Yeah.
That was actually kind of good, to be fair.
Well, if we ever hang out in person one day, or even on a live special kind of thing, if I'm not too drunk, I will kick a freestyle. I'm pretty good at like coming stuff, especially after a couple of drinks, like freestyling and coming up with stuff from the top of my head. Especially if like I'm in the mood and people are shouting stuff out. I used to do that with buddies where like I did it with this one kid and we're all drinking a bunch of people and we're kicking freestyles and my buddy was shouting out words to me and the other guy's like, no writtens. I'm like, I'm not writing shit. I was like, this is like legitimately from the top of my head. So yes, if you guys
I could do that.
If you guys, I've been doing it for a very, very long time. So if you guys don't know that at the end of every episode, I play one of my songs, because I've been creating music since I was like 16, like actually recording it and stuff like that, since I was like 16 or whatever. So yeah, if people didn't know that, yeah, that's all the songs play at the end is either me or me and Billy. And I was listening back to the one me and Billy did, and I'm trying to get him back on board because he wants to produce more music. And I was like, we should start working on something. And there's that song "No Means Yes," and it's a story where Billy kind of goes crazy on this girl, and it's just made up. And then I'm the dad, and then I think I sent it to you. Did I send it to you? And I was like, I was laughing about how stupid it is. Then I'm the dad, and then I shoot him and shoot him at the end. So.
Very
Weird.
controversial. What's that shirt you're wearing?
I was gonna ask. It's machete.
Nice.
Yeah,
I like that.
I found it in my closet. I got this at like a horror con thing. I haven't fucking worn it in a bit. But welcome back, everybody. I'm pretty excited for this. Obviously, I am Tomcat, aka Tom Thompson, the Reptilian. Yeah, I should probably just stick to one name at some point, but maybe when I'm like 80, I'll do
It
that.
works though. It's like, and I know radio is dead, like, but it sounds like that kind of like radio DJ that kind of gets people hyped.
Welcome
It's like,
back
hey,
to Strange Brew Podcast at 1095 FM. And
we
obviously,
make our own pirate radio.
who do I well, we're gonna have to. I'm gonna have to do it in like a bunker as soon as the 2030 agenda comes in.
You know what, right? And you're not wrong there, actually, because I'm having a severely hard time trying to upload shit on Rumble.
Really?
Yeah.
Weird.
Weird. Like
Why,
every time I upload it, and then when I refresh, it's not there.
Weird. We are on Rumble and BitChute and stuff like that, and I connect my YouTube to Rumble. Have you done that?
Yeah.
So you can sync it, and it works fine there. But I feel like we should be reaching more people considering some of the live streams that happen on Rumble. It's kind of we get weird comments like we're on BitChute now where it's like kind of more underground and
That one today was weird.
yeah. So let me read a comment from BitChute is like more underground. We don't have that many people on it, but it's uncensored. We get like hundreds and hundreds of views on there, but people are they're not inclined to subscribe as much as people on like YouTube and stuff like that. And for everyone listens on YouTube and stuff like that or anywhere, give us a like. Subscribe, share our podcast and stuff like that. That's, we're a low budget but pay a lot a year for this podcast to be running and doing all the stuff that we do. So I never shut it out, but yeah, like it would be great if you get 5-star reviews, subscribe, share it, tell your friends, tell your mother. I don't know, tell your kids. I don't know about that. Don't tell your mom. Maybe she might not appreciate this. But we had someone did review and say that they're a 65-year-old grandma and they're not our demographic, but they love our show. So whoever you are,
That's pretty
I
cool.
love you, Granny.
That is pretty cool.
So someone commented on the bit shoot. They're like, serial killers were hoaxes to cover up black crimes in the 80s. Now they use school shooters. I didn't even, I just deleted the comments. I'm like, that's just fucking is so dumb.
Right.
It's just factually incorrect. School shootings, a lot of the people that die during school shootings are fucking white kids.
Would it be rude to ask for that person's username?
Sure. It is on our story on Instagram, so make sure you subscribe or follow.
Yeah, you might have to go there to
Strangebrew
look at
Podcast.
you might have to go there to look at the username because it's a
Oh.
very bold one.
Oh, based NIGGUR. So yes, and the thing is, everyone's like, "That's based, bro." It's like, bro, what the fuck? Like, I don't like people are using that. Like Tim Pool uses it. Fucking High Res, the rapper, uses it. But like to be like I'm based, but yet I'm claiming that all serial killers were hoaxes, even though there's mountains of evidence, that even if they were influenced by the government or some sort of MK Ultra conspiracy to increase violence and bring fear into the public consciousness, it still happens. And a lot of school shootings that have been done by, yes, white people. More recently, a lot of trans people, and then it's usually white people that get shot. Like if you look at the victim ratio and stuff like that, is a lot of white kids in different ethnicities, sure, that get shot in school shootings, but it's like in Columbine, weren't like most of the people that got shot white?
That's something that never gets mentioned though, which is kind of hilarious.
Well,
really.
they're all, in my opinion, everybody, most school shootings, are orchestrated by the government to try to encroach on the freedoms of you owning a gun. And that's just my opinion, but there's a lot of weird coincidences and circumstances that surround almost all school shootings. We will eventually cover that stuff. I'm actually going to do something that I have OCD about on this podcast. We haven't even gotten to the topic yet. We're going to start at the very first school shooting and move forward.
You know that's actually a really interesting idea.
Yes, it is my idea, but there is a lot of evidence that goes into why I think these things. I've spent 15 years doing research. If people don't know, I've spent a lot of time researching.
Can you imagine
a
how
lot of
cool
stuff.
the world is going to be when they? I know I live in a country where guns are illegal anyway,
Yeah,
but imagine how cool it's going to be when they do that across the globe and nobody can have guns. It's going to
except
be
for the
like
government and the police.
it's going to be like some shit out of the fucking Purge.
It is, and this is why. Before we get off this, I did a video and it reached thousands upon thousands of people, and I said, if you're someone who, if you advocate for gun control, then you don't get armed guards. Like my crime minister and in the States, all these people that are like, take away their guns, we need gun control to stop these school shootings, and all the things that they yell from the top of their lungs about while not doing anything to help society or change it, and they're usually mentally ill, is like if the politicians that are pushing for gun control don't have your armed guards around you, then see what happens.
That's a fair point.
So
That's
you can't be a fucking hypocrite, but what do we know? What do we know about the people on the left or people in general, even on the right? They're a bunch of fucking hypocrites. Constantly. They'll say one thing out of the side of their mouth and then they'll yell another thing and it will contradict each other, and they're just being brainwashed.
And that's the same here. Like obviously the police here for the most part don't have guns or anything either, but any of like the politicians, anybody in government always have like armed bodyguards, which is hilarious.
Hypocritical. The reptilian elite run our world, and it's gonna get a lot worse in the next 5 years. And just don't say I didn't tell you so, because I told you so. I told us so, Ricky.
Me and Tom are going to be living in an underground bunker somewhere.
I'm
We don't know what part of the planet. we're gonna be on.
I'm gonna dig a hole to Ireland. I'm gonna go underneath the ocean bed, and I'm gonna try to get there. I'll get Hitler's boring machines, and we'll fucking make a big tunnel underneath the ocean.
You'll just live in that.
Yeah, the underground tunnels. So because we've been covering a lot of, we've been doing a lot of alien stuff, which I have enjoyed, but there's been recently a lot of alien episodes that have came out, and we're starting to sprinkle some serial killers in there too. People are we're loving the Toy Box killer episode.
I was kind of shocked.
Yeah, people are loving it, but not loving it. I'm loving it. It's disgusting.
Yeah, I get it though, and I suppose it's probably the same reason we consume like a lot of the true crime and maybe some of the like sicker aspects of conspiracies that we do. It's just because there's this weird like interest at the same time. Like I
Yeah.
felt that even when we were researching for that episode. I was like, I don't like this, but there's something that's like really intriguing to me. I'm like,
I
how is
can't
this even
wait
real?
till we do the women that love serial killers, because it's like there is too many women out there that are probably getting wet while they watch true crime shows. And I'm not saying every woman, don't fucking mistake my words, but there's definitely some out there that's like, I can fix him, you know.
Which is just, oh, it's so
Or it's
fucking
just a
wild.
fucking fetish kind of thing, because everyone has a fetish now, according to whatever. Let's just get into this. So, everybody, welcome back to the show. This will be kind of fun. Let's travel back to a time where everybody smelled like shit.
Woohoo!
Yay! Everyone smelled like poo poo, and
It's 2017.
Yeah. They reeked of whiskey and sheep shit, pretty much. So we're going back to a time of the settlers. The Baldoon settlement was originally conceptualized by Lord Selkirk. So it obviously, this is when people were starting to, come over here from Ireland, specifically, probably from England.
Bit rude, no?
Yeah. Look at it. How many people do you think in this photo are? Because we're showing, obviously, there was no cameras back then, but there was like art done or like drawings and depictions of the settlers coming over. Obviously, you have somebody Jack from the Titanic that just like sits there and draws on his notepad. And how many?
He
can
draws
you get?
boobies, though.
Yeah, he loves these boobies. How many can you guess are probably Irish? I'm guessing like almost fucking half.
Yeah, every single one of them. Anyone who looks anyway like decent is probably not Irish, and then all the scumbags are probably Irish.
But like a lot of Irish settlers did come over at this time to flee the potato famine. I don't know if that's factually correct, but
Yeah, probably. That's the one we'll go with. It's in the history books.
so we're actually going, I like to, there's some fans I enjoy when we get back to Canada. So we're going back to the land of Kanata, because it was known as Big Village to the indigenous. I'm pretty sure, if I know my history correct. So this settlement that was, I guess, started by Lord Selkirk. It was located near present-day Wallaceburg in southern Ontario. I'm actually curious of where this is and if I can visit it, because I am in southern Ontario, but I don't know where Wallaceburg is. Lord Selkirk imagined a settlement that mirrored his homeland, the Scottish Highlands, in every way. So obviously there's a lot of Scottish people too coming this way, Just after we already destroyed and pillaged and raped and stole all the gold of the indigenous, then people started coming over.
Yeah, it's really cool like that. I actually, I don't know why, because it's kind of a stupid thing to say, but I never pictured Scottish people settling in other places. I don't know why. I always just assume it was Irish. I was like, yeah, it's always the fucking Irish. It's always the Irish.
Yeah, you got your toes into the sand everywhere. You spread your what a potato
Seed.
when potatoes grow, they grow like those vine things. That's what they've like molded or whatever, sat out too long. That's what happens to Irish people.
That's another dig, is it, about our potato famine?
Yeah.
It's a bit rude. We're still. Oh God, I didn't even get that.
He imported sheep and persuade at least 15 families from the old country to undertake his exciting new adventure. They arrived on September 5th, 1804, and I couldn't imagine what it was like back then. Like, it's probably wild to have existed at that time period where, like, it is, you're living off the land, you're making, like, log cabins kind of things to survive. There's wild animals, there's indigenous people that want to scalp you. There's a lot of stuff going on.
Do you think, right, that if we were able to go back to that time and so say, let's say, for example, you were able to go back in time to there and swap places with another dude of your exact age and whatever, and then bring him to 2023, do you think both would be equally as like blown away by how the world is?
I think to some extent, I'm sure the guy that I brought back from the early 1800s would probably sit in the corner screaming, just like shocked at what the fuck the world has turned into. And I'm sure I would do the same when I smelled everyone around me.
Probably when they all have fucking black teeth and
Yeah,
like, oof.
women are like extremely hairy. Like I don't did women. I don't think women did women shave their legs back then. So I don't think so. I have to like
Probably not have
I want to
fucking
like
hairy armpits and shit.
yeah, yeah. But now it's reverting back to that with all this feminist that, I'm not going to get into that shit.
No, but you're right, though, and it's absolutely revolting, and anyone that does it should kill themselves.
Don't say that. No, I know, I know one of my buddies, I think, yeah, they're married, wife. She is like, they've had their kid in a home birth and very like feministic, but against the stuff that's going on because a lot of feminists rah for some of the hypocrisy when it comes to the cultist community and the leftist woke cult and stuff like that, which is kind of funny because like I've said, every movement has been hijacked to push the agenda of the WEF and the people that are above them and all that stuff. And I bring it up because it's very important that people understand where this world is headed. And if you know the outcome, you'll know the journey. But like it is kind of, and she I think does that too, and she talks about her. I'm not gonna shout anyone out by name, but she talks about like her period and stuff like that, and it's just like very strange for me to hear and to read that stuff when she was posting about it, and like almost like a joyous time to have my bloody time of the month, and I was
To have
like,
my strange
what?
brew.
Yeah, yeah. Fucking gross.
Like that little tie in there.
But like I don't know what it was like back then. You can only read about it essentially because there was no footage. There's not like there's not like pictures of it. Where at least like when you're getting like I think in about 50 years, 60 years by the time this time. That they start developing cameras where like this still shot, everyone's got to stand there for 25 minutes before the fucking camera takes the picture. But like people, at least we have drawings and art back then, and things that we can kind of look at. But I don't know, it just looks crazy. Like what a crazy time to exist in, and you got to be tough and strong. And and then your wife's dying or your kids are dying. So many people are dying, right? You're dying from disease. You're dying from giving birth. You're dying from not washing your hands and then touching your cut on your leg. You know what I mean? It's like not a good time to be alive.
Wait, listening to you say that reminds me of A Million Ways to Die in the West.
Yeah, like if you think about, and that's a little later on, but if you think about that kind of time period, this is even before then.
But just how like he has that whole that like monologue where he talks about like you die from like the black shit, you die from this, you die from that. He was
Yeah.
like, our mayor is a dead guy.
And the wolves drag him
Yeah,
off, and
like
he's
and all
like,
this shit
in
like
a
that.
weird way of like, and he's that's so funny.
And like it's but I suppose like that was the reality back then. It makes me
100%.
wonder like how few of us would actually survive if
Can I was gonna, and like I said, I don't believe in right or left. I'm a fucking anarchist. I hate all governments. But clearly, if you took some of the men and women from the conservative side of things, plop them back in that time period, they would most likely survive if you gave them a gun and a shelter to live in. I would not say the same about the people on the left in the woke cult. You know.
well that same a lot of those same morals and ethics would literally have no substance in a place like that. It's
No.
like everything you say doesn't work.
No, it's just like, I'm a woman. No, you're fucking not.
And it's like, she said something to me I didn't like, so we need to put her in a mental hospital.
or he. You know,
Yeah.
burned at the stake. Burned at the stake. We were joking before we really dive into this episode. It's gonna be a fun ghost episode because of now kind of Brett being like slowly introduced to the show. I like Brett a lot. We smoke cigars and talk shit. And he's got a pretty big property, so we're talking about doing little short films on his property and stuff like that. Just kind of funny, like dark humored style thing. And we have one of our buddy who was on Strange Stogies episode, Sawyer. He works out a lot. He's like a built dude. And we were gonna like do a skit where somebody comes back in a time machine from like this time era, and then Sawyer was gonna like wear a wig and like it's like that's a woman. And he's like that's not a woman, and like make the whole joke about what somebody in this even time era, like the early 1800s, would think if they came into our reality here and in this time era and what would like what they would think.
You know what, right? And I think they would have an easier time understanding the concept of the internet
Yeah.
than they would the concept of what is a woman? What does
Yeah.
it mean to be a man? And
Yeah.
all this fucking shit.
I'm sorry this gets brought up a lot on the show, but at the same
I
time, we're
can't
just two
help
guys
it.
having a conversation, and I just like it's so prominent, especially like this is the when we're recording this because it's not going to come out till this is we're in the future right now, everybody, or we're in the past technically. We're technically
So
in
we
the
can
past.
speak. Yeah, so we can actually speak from experience. We're in the future and the past.
Yeah, exactly. So, but the Pride Month is just ending, and the whole event just went on where they had all their Nazi flags hanging from the fucking banners in every city, everywhere, like a fucking complete Marxist takeover. I understand. Marxist communist is different than Nazism, but you know what? Fascism and communism are very much the same when you look at it from the outside.
No, it's really cool, man. I think you should just get with the program. Submit.
Yeah, comply. No, thank you. So let's get back to the time error. Let's bring it in. We'll keep this uncut for YouTube, but let's bring it in fresh. Okay, let's bring it in fresh. The Baldoon settlement was originally conceptualized by Lord Selkirk, and it was near. It was near present day Wallaceburg in southern Ontario. Lord Selkirk. That'd be fun to be a lord, eh? Imagine the
Oh, that
settlement.
was so Canadian.
What?
You said A again.
Yeah, hey, buddy. But imagine a settlement that mirrored his homeland in Scotland. In every way, he imported sheep and pursued at least 15 families from the old country to undertake this new exciting adventure. They arrived on September 5th, 1804, optimistic about the future, but were soon greeted by a swampy piece of land just in time for malaria season. Who doesn't love malaria season? But don't worry, because Bill Gates, he's got a vaccine for you, and it will kill 200 of you before we find out that it's not actually good, and it's not good for anybody. Yes, he's holding up his Heineken beer. Yes.
My can of moobs.
Yes, because now he owns a stake in that company, so everybody beware. I'm trying to get through this shitty Alexander Keith's beer. I still have too much of it, and I have to like just try to drink it.
Twofer.
Yeah, a 2-4. A 2-4 here, bud. I can't even do. It's funny. I'm Canadian, but I can't do really a well Canadian accent. I have to like hear it first. But like I said, well, like there's an uncut version of this on YouTube. But like I couldn't imagine what it was like to live in this time era. I think that most people would not survive from where we are today. And bringing them back in time,
no way.
They would not survive.
No.
And I'm not right or left, but conservatives would most likely survive more than people on the left would, or they probably wouldn't survive at all. It's just basic understanding of the leftist woke cult and how they can't even handle being misgendered. So I couldn't imagine if they have to defend their family against a pack of wolves or a pack of indigenous. I'm just joking. They don't roll in packs, but they kind of do. But I got fucking. It's like I hear someone yelling in the back of my head, like so. It's like the woke culture just yelling, and I'm like, I've had tons of indigenous friends. I grew up with natives, so you can fuck off.
No, I think you're You're rude. To be
Yes, I
honest
am.
with you now.
I don't have that. I don't have that asshole button from the Nightmare on Elm Street deep dive. Asshole.
You
So
should have
this is,
kept that one.
I know, wild time. So the settlement got off to a rough start, foreshadowing the many difficult years ahead. The low-lying swamplands were difficult to cultivate, and agricultural output was dismissal. I don't. That's a weird way to put it. Um, dismal. I'm just gonna look up what the hell this fucking word means. Dismal. Causing gloom and depression. Weird. I've never even heard of this word. Dis- dismal. God damn it. I had to listen to it. It's spelled, sorry,
Oh,
dismal.
did that go like dismal?
Yeah. Yeah. That's funny. That's weird. I did not know that's how you spelled dismal. But obviously everyone's kind of sad. It's just weird. Why would they pick this piece of land though? They're
It's
just
like,
like,
let's pick the most miserable, like shittest piece of land.
my feet hurt, Daddy.
It's
Can
like,
we
let me
stop
bring
here?
these people. Hey, I have a really cool pitch. Wanna up sticks and move to the other side of the world to a really shit place that's like uninhabitable, basically.
Yeah. That's crazy though. He's like, my feet hurt. I want to stop right here. This is good, son.
Yeah, it's like
This is
no,
a
but
swampy
there's no
area.
resources here. There's nothing good here. I don't care. I'm done.
I'm lazy. I'm done. But what? What else are you gonna get from Scottish people, right?
This is it. Pigs,
Sheep hunters, they say, and then it's like,
sheep shaggers.
then they drink nothing but scotch. Before I came on the podcast, I took a shot of this really shitty scotch. I'm trying to drink up. Chelsea's dad didn't want it, so I took it, and it's not good.
Gross.
It's very gross. Just keep it in the freezer so it's nice and cold, but it tastes like manure. I don't know how else to describe it. It's just awful tasting. Some original Highlanders, that could be only one, remain in the general area of Baldoon. They were soon joined by others who were interested in the better plots of land. So there's like, they posted up on this shitty ass spot. And I don't know if he bought it beforehand or what, but then other people came in and they're like, oh, well, you see that over there? That place is not so swampy? We'll take that. We'll take that.
Was this guy just like an idiot or
Aren't most Scottish people? I
true?
have Scottish blood, but that's just like
Pigs.
me saying that I have Irish blood. I'm amalgamation of all these different cultures because my family has been here for a long time, and they
So
didn't colonize
technically,
shit.
you can say anything about any community and nobody can get annoyed.
No, I got black family too. I have Jamaican family, so you can suck my left testicle. Um, that's the good one. It's the bigger one. So one of the one of
It
the
always is.
yeah, one of this, and for women that don't understand, yes, one testicle is bigger than the other, so they don't rub together and hit each other when we're walking. That is a fucking scientific fact.
And it's normally the left one because that artery runs from your heart on the left side
Oh,
right down
I
into
didn't
that
know
nut.
that. That creeps me out, actually.
And I only know that because I thought I had nut cancer at one point and I had to go for an ultrasound.
Oh, don't tell me that. I feel like I
Oh,
know
there we
that
go.
shit. I hate even anything to do with that shit. Like anything to think about what goes on inside my body, or
Oh,
especially
terrible.
my like testes or my dick or whatever. Yeah.
Terrible. It is actually a really, like, we're getting a little bit off topic again,
Yes.
but
Okay.
like it's a really freakish thought. Sometimes I have these weird, like, don't want to call them like out of body, more like a inside body experience, where you start to actually think about like, it's like there's, if I just cut my skin open right now, all my guts will spill out and they're like in there. And
You have those thoughts often?
not often, but when my nuts hurt and I was like, huh. And then I started to think about it more and more, and then having people like poke and prod at them, and I was like, oh god, this is like the
Well,
worst.
and that's the whole thing about like if you can project, right? The things that you think about project out, and if for the people that are like that think they're always going to get sick and they're always worried about being sick, especially during the last 3 years and stuff like that, and the stuff that was pushed by our government to keep people in fear, it will actually make you sick. So they're convincing people that they were sick, so then people's consciousness would shift and they would think that they were sick when they really weren't. The biggest trick the CDC ever pulled was to convince people that you were sick without symptoms.
which is a
Suck it.
really clever trick.
Yeah, very clever. And the more I learn about all the stuff that's going on, and I've read tons of books about this, reading David Icke's book right now, and stuff like that. I've read many, many books about what's going on in the world and our history and what the future may hold if people don't wake up. Consciousness and energy is all around us, and the did I tell you about my last mushroom trip when I was in the
No,
pool? Oh, bro.
no.
So I did like this new strain, just a little off topic, but I did a new strain of mushrooms, and it was supposed to be extremely potent. It was double the potency of most mushrooms. I didn't find it that potent. You know, it's because I was outside in the sun, so it's not like you're cooped up in a house where, I don't know, like everything looked fake, and that's why I'm like, the trees look fake. They look like they're like a AI animation kind of thing. It's like wild. I'm like, what the fuck? So the pool was really cold. Okay. I was in a pool and I decided to swim, but it was cold as fuck because the heater was not on at all, and it's been cold the days beforehand. And I was like, "Fuck it, I'm gonna swim around," and it like it was a shock to my system. And then I sat there. Chelsea was inside getting changed because she didn't swim for too long, and I kind of sat there in the cold water, almost like meditating, to some extent, because you can use magic mushrooms to actually get in a meditative state. And everything around me started shaking, and then it like blended everything. It was blending into one thing, and I was like, I thought I saw like a shift in like reality of how everything is connected, and it's all a fabrication. It's not as real as we think it is. It's wild.
You see, I don't know, like I feel
I
like you're
told that to
probably.
Billy, and Billy's like, "You're not selling it to me. That does not sound fun."
Well, maybe I'll echo something similar, but I feel like you're like well versed in like that situation now, not to freak out.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
like hearing you say that, sometimes I'm like, I feel like that could have potential for me to like go downhill really quick. Like the only time I ever did do them, and like was having a really good time until somebody else wasn't.
Yeah, yeah.
And then all of a sudden I felt like I was feeding off his energy, and I was like, I
100%.
felt like I was like in the Blair Witch.
You have
It
to
was
be
terrible.
you have to be conscious of what you're doing, what you're feeling, also different energies and stuff like that. Like I've told you, I watched The Witch outside on mushrooms and like or other horror movies, and it looked like a kaleidoscope. And then I was like, I almost gave myself some sort of anxiety shit. And this is that time when I was like, not I was being stupid and drinking and also smoking weed while I was on them, which I don't suggest to anybody to do. And I literally like got in this really paranoid mindset of like, oh, I messed around with the Ouija board. I have darkness all around me. I'm cursed, like shit like that, which was not good. Um,
Maybe that's why I'm thinking that, because like my only experience also had shit tons of like whiskey and like whatever else.
Never mix. I'm telling everyone out there right now. I don't even like smoking weed while I'm on mushrooms or even after the fact. You have to let yourself burn out. Never mix anything with mushrooms. I'm telling you right now. The more you do it, the more you'll learn the lesson hard. Like if if you're coming down off mushrooms, having like a beer or two, that's not that bad. But you should eat and all that stuff. Like I can give people tips. I have a couple of YouTube videos where I explain my experience with mushrooms.
Because I
So go
feel
check
like a
that shit
lot
out.
of the right before we get off this, I guess, um, I feel like a lot of the average person would probably associate, as
It's like a
foolish as it
party
is,
drug. It's not a
yeah,
party
like
drug.
they would associate like let's have tons of drinks and then take mushrooms.
No, bad idea. You'll have a terrible trip. Horrible. Because
Mm.
alcohol, mushrooms expand your mind and can give you very joyous feelings and make you feel great. And every time I do them, I feel amazing afterwards. Like when I was burning out, I was done. We watched a movie outside. I said a video of you watching. We were watching the extraterrestrial movie, which I
Hmm.
eventually want to cover on First Class Horror. Way off topic. Sorry for everybody from the topic. But then I smoked cigars and I felt great. Always feel good afterwards. But alcohol is a depressant and it's not good for you. For any little amounts and drinking it once in a while, as I do, in moderation is good. But once you go overboard and you're mixing out with mushrooms, which is supposed to be a very like spiritual experience, not a good idea. I said no,
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
So as the settlers came in, right, they're all like finding, better places and plots of land. One of those was John MacDonald and his young family. By all accounts, life in Baldoon in the 1820s was difficult but largely uneventful. It was obviously because you're having to live off the land, you have to build all your structures from the ground up, right? And for all the audio listeners looking at like a painting of what it was like kind of back then, a lot of it you would be like in a massive forest, and you would just kind of be knocking down trees. And this is when men were men, real men. They had a big ass axe and they're lumberjacks knocking down fucking trees and shit. And
I
you
love
know,
the idea of that. Like
me
I
too.
love the idea of, if like a group of us could get together and you were just able to go somewhere and go, okay, this is going to be our new place and we're
Yeah.
going to make it ours and we're going to build everything and we're going to own it and nobody's going to be able to tell us anything.
But a lot of hard work. And look at the like my grandfather's generation, where there was people, tons of people I know and stuff like that built houses with their bare hands and
It's
built it from
just
the ground
wild.
up. And we became so weak,
People can't live in
docile.
houses now without complaining.
I know. And people become so like lazy, docile, almost too comfortable, in my opinion. And like they have taxes going through the roof everywhere. Every society across the world, every country, every nation is being eroded, and their freedoms are being eroded by this agenda that ye yes be named, or yet be whatever the fuck I'm going on about. But it's just like it was a different time and place, and that like you had to be strong and you had to endure. But then when you were done, imagine you'd be like, wow, that took me like 6 months, to finalize everything, get everything made. But you would look back at this house and you'd be like, that's a nice house. That's a
Yeah, and
nice
I feel
house.
like, complaining probably wasn't a thing because
No.
there was nobody to complain to. So it was just like, got to get on with it.
Reminds me of that scene in Holes. I don't want to work no more, Grandpa. You're going to shut the fuck up and you're going to work. That's not what exactly he says, but it's close enough.
I only watched that like 2 weeks
I fucking love that movie, dude. I'm a big fucking Shia LaBeouf fan. I love Shia
You
LaBeouf.
see, did he again, off topic, Jesus Christ, I
Yeah,
need to
go.
get my head checked, but did I see something? He got a whole chest piece tattooed on for some
Yeah,
new gangster movie that
that
he's.
movie's been out for a bit.
Oh,
I
but
watched it. Not that good.
is that tattoo real?
I think so.
Wow, wild.
Yeah,
Why?
he's sick in the head. But
Psychotic.
if you watch the movie about his life, Honey Badger, something like, I don't know, something like that. It's about his life, and it's fairly interesting. It shows kind of where he came from, and he who knows what kind of MK Ultra he endured. The mystery surround us. So once they start getting into this, right, it's uneventful for now. Soon the quiet settlement of hardy Highlanders would be rocked by events that would outlive the community. And this is where it gets a little strange, they might say, just a little.
My
Yes.
favorite sound effect.
The mystery centers around a poltergeist that haunted the family of the John McDonald of John. Jesus. I'll edit the audio video. Fuck you. The mystery centers around a poltergeist that haunted the family of John McDonald for 3 years. John was the oldest son of Donald and Flora McDonald. Named her the fucking wife after flowers. Flora.
The whole time you said McDonald there like 25 times, and I just couldn't stop thinking of Ronald McDonald.
The son. It says the John was the oldest son of Donald. So so this guy is named Donald McDonald.
Jesus
His name
Christ.
is Donald McDonald.
What the fuck?
Two of the original Baldoon pioneers who came from Scotland to Lord Selkirk's planned settlement in 1804. If I was a lord, I hope that he's making other people build his stuff for him. You know what I mean?
You would imagine so, right? But how do you even do that?
You just get a bunch of slaves,
Yeah, but how do you even?
What
That's
is a
something I was always
lord? A
fascinated.
man of high rank in a feudal society. Feudal society. A lord, a deity, a person of authority, control and power over others, acting as a master, a chief, a ruler. All right, well, so he did have authority and he was a ruler. So why are you building your own shit? John had been just 6 years old when the family immigrated from Kirkcut, Brightshire. That's a long word. It's a very long word. It's Kirkcut, Brightshire. Kirkcut, Brightshire. Kirkcut, Brightshire.
I still don't understand why. Or I don't. So he's a lord.
It's like 16 fucking letters. Kirkcut, Brightshire. Yeah, he's a lord. Sorry, I can't get over this stupid this settlement. That's just like, where are you going? I'm just going to my friend. He lives in Kirkcut, Brightshire. So I'm sure they cut it down to Brightshire.
Get that name from like.
He grew to maturity on the Baldoon settlement, married a local girl, and in 1826 acquired a farm of his own in Lot A of the 4th concession. So obviously this is how they started building stuff, and they still have concessions to this day of like farmland and stuff like that, and in places outside of the city, which I would not want to be in. This lot was it was created in a farm and stuff by other people in the area. And so it was already cultivated and stuff by the time that he bought this land. Okay? It's like if you throw back to, everyone go check out our Black Donnelly episode. It would have been great if we knew you by that time, but it was about an Irish family that came over here and then just picked a plot of land and was like, this is ours now. And then they fought with neighbors, beat the shit out of people. Yeah, did I mention they were Irish? They would drink a lot. And then eventually and throwback, it's a great episode. Everyone go check it out. Everyone kind of band together and then burned the Black Donnellys alive in their home.
I wish we could do that here with Travelers.
I'm sure you do. Don't say that too loud.
I know, because they'll come to my house and kill me.
So, particularly one old elderly lady, old and elderly the same thing, but one elderly lady by the name of Buchanan, who offered many times to purchase the land from John. He refused her request and built his large farmhouse upon the land. It's like, please, sir, I was cultivating this land for so long. Can you please let me live here? And he said, fuck off, you old bitch. This time error and this whole kind of episode does remind me of The Witch. And go back and listen to our episode on that, or go watch the movie and then listen to our episode on it. Because to me, that movie does depict a good idea of what it would have been like to exist then. Your little fucking log house, man, and then it's just like, yeah, what you said. The brother's eyeing up the sister because that's the only fucking girl he's ever seen in his life because they live in the middle of fucking nowhere. And it's like, how is he supposed to find a wife? He has to go into town, but he's banned from town because they kicked him out for being heretics or whatever the fuck happened.
So he's got to get groovy with his sister.
Yep, and that's why you had so much inbreeding going on in Kentucky and all those other places like that. Because they were just in the middle of fucking nowhere. And then if one family did it, you know what I mean? And then they had kids, and then it would just spawn from there where it would just keep going down bloodlines.
What you're saying is you could see like the logic behind having sex with your own sister, yeah?
No. I was gonna say, I almost said, but to survive the human race, I still know. I feel like you just have to die. You just have to because say you're the last two people on Earth, but hey, Adam and Eve, technically brother and sister, according to the people that believe in the Bible.
You have a lot of kids that look like those fucking freaky family. Is it the Whitakers or whatever the fuck they're called?
We will be covering that very soon. Or the blue fugate people or whatever. I was actually debating on doing that fairly soon with you. Or the royal family, which I eventually want to talk about, where they're like fucking jaws all fucked up. They're like, their jaws like fucking jutting out the side of their mouth. This is that douchebag.
It looks like a Christopher Walken a bit.
Yeah, maybe he is. This is Lord Selkirk, I think. I might be wrong. Let me look this up very quickly now. I just want to see what this douche looks like. Oh yeah, that's him. Yep, he's a strange looking fella. Strange. There's a guy that looks just like him and Contact information for Lord Selkirk of Douglas. Wow, there's a guy that is still around today that holds a bloodline with this guy, or he's a fucking reptilian. And he looks very similar as an old man, though. Like, as an old man, it looks just like him.
You need to get in touch with him.
That's fucking weird. Have him on the show. Be like, are you a reptile?
Are you a fucking idiot?
So, yeah, well, that's inbreeding, right? Keeps the genes, the gene stock in the same, so the bloodlines can penetrate the cabinets.
You're all about that, yeah?
Yeah, I fucking
You're
love
into that.
it.
You support inbreeding.
No, but this is like, okay, think about this, right? Do you survive? Do you, if it's just you and your sister, you're the only people left on the entire earth. That's it. You know that for a fact.
Right? Let's talk about it, right, from like a logical point of view here.
I feel like that's a movie. We should make a movie like that. It's like the last people that survive, and it's a brother and sister, and the whole time it's like inching towards this.
All right, okay. So let me ask a question then. Is she sexy?
Both male and female, brother and sister, have to be very attractive.
Then I wouldn't have an issue with it. But let's be realistic here. I don't think there's very few dudes who, in that situation, if you've gotten to the point where you start looking at your sister like that, I don't really think there's many men that are going, yeah, no, I need to like do this to survive. I think they're just thinking,
I'm horny.
Yeah, I'm horny, and I probably have sex with my own mother, so I don't care.
And you can kind of see it in the movie The Witch. There is some, I feel like, hint at that.
Yeah.
Of that, and I'm honestly saying I'm sure that happened more often than people want to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And it still happens to this day. You know.
It's pretty hot, actually.
No, it's not.
I thought that's what you were saying.
No, not at all.
I didn't read the room properly.
That's fucking funny. All right, let's get back to it before I get way off topic. We just finished the documentary on the sixth. What is it? Oh God, it's gonna bug me. The fundamental Christian family that fucking had too many kids.
Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Anyway, fuck, man, it's gonna drive me insane. I just literally watched it, and you had the brother that's a creeper, and the fundamental Christians that are like, no, don't masturbate, but if you look at your sister, that's fucking okay. I wouldn't mind
thumbs up.
talking
Don't
about
masturbate,
that.
but your sister can masturbate you.
It's like 10 and counting or whatever. Like, it's about this huge family of fundamental Christians, which I wouldn't mind covering on the show eventually. I did start looking at stuff if we did want to cover it. It's kind of like a fun maybe live show or something like that because it's kind of fucked up. So back to it. A lot of editing on this one, but not for the video. Like I said, you get it raw, like Old Dirty Bastard said, okay? So he refused this old bitch and said, like, I'm going to build my farmhouse upon the land. And October 28th, October 1829, a pole suddenly crashed down from the ceiling as the women of the family and some neighbor girls were repairing straw in the barn. Great. That's what you do, ladies. You prepare the straw. Okay? You hear me? You get that straw ready for daddy. The barn was made of logs, having above its main floor a ceiling of poles that formed a loft in the opening and the ends in the floor with the poles. So obviously, if you understand how old houses were structured, it was like to keep up the roof and all that kind of stuff. As they're building the house, you need to have a proper structure to build things around it. And for the audio listeners, we'll be showing some pictures of the house. And kind of the property. I think this is a depiction of what it did kind of look like. Looks like somebody should have spent more time building that fence, but no judgments.
I can't stop thinking about
time error.
What it would have been like.
I have no idea, man, and that's why I like movies. Like I could mention The Witch again, but I like movies like that because it really does show, I feel like, the time era.
Yeah, that one really did, I think, for me. Like, that really kind of hit home. I was like,
whoa.
Because, yeah, and like, I feel like no matter what way I say this, it's going to sound wrong, but like, that whole, like, brother and sister thing, it kind of makes it even more real because I'm like, you know what? In the context of, like, what's going on here in this story, I can kind of get like this being a thing, and like how weird and like mental.
Yeah, and to us, like to me, this has a weird fucking. To us, it would seem weird, and even back then, it would to an extent. But a lot of these people were really religious, and if you do follow the Bible, understand it, Adam and Eve were brother and sister.
Hmm.
And then they say that if that is true or whatever, all of us are cousins in some regard. It goes down obviously generations upon, and it goes down very far down the line. But how we're all connected, technically to the Almighty One unison, the unified consciousness is one way to put it. But if you're thinking physically, technically most of us are a distant cousin of each other. But it could be very, very, very distant.
Which is kind of spooky then,
It's
because then
weird,
we're all
and
fucking our cousins.
I am fucking sure. Like, and that's what I'm saying. I'm sure back then they were doing this far more often than we'll ever understand. Because nobody's writing about that shit. I married my first cousin. It was my mom and dad had two kids, and they had two kids, and then I fucked that kid. It's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
not
it's
gonna be
true
writing
actually,
about
and
that shit.
yeah, and it probably was like a lot closer relations as well.
100%, because you're in a small settlement, and then it's just like, so all your family comes down, then a couple of them get cholera and they die, some of them get scalped, and who knows, and then so you have to like, you get what you get, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, did you listen to the Goaler episode where it's just
Yeah,
like, it's just like that thing where it's just like, well, this town is so small and there's this small community, and it's like, well, she married a goaler. He married a goaler. They married a goaler. You know what I mean? When I say
yeah,
they, I mean
true.
I'm referring to two people, not one person. Thank you very much. Thank you.
um, yeah, I guess yeah, that's probably true. And like it's it's going to be slim pickings, and then
Yeah, I know.
like I still think as well, aside from maybe the social aspect of it, where you were probably expected to find a wife or a husband,
Yeah, yeah.
blah blah blah. Aside from all that, like I definitely think there's like a biological, like, men for the most part that are attracted to women have this attraction. We're drawn to women that we're
Yeah.
interested in, and vice versa for women. So it's like, I guess when you've got maybe two people to choose from, and it's like your mother or your sister, it's like, well, you know what, it probably makes more sense for me to fuck my
And
sister.
I'm sure there's probably people be like, why the fuck are they talking about this? I truly think because it's actually is more relevant than you think. If you think about like a movie like Sleepy Hollow and like how small some of those towns were and how everyone was going to the same church, and then it's just like, well, she's a Christian and she might be my third cousin, but slim pickings.
It is what it is.
You gotta keep the population going, especially over here, because the more they had sex and procreated and created children, and the more they could thrive, and they could use those children to do backbreaking work when Daddy got too old, which is the truth.
And then daddy could have sex with all the kids.
Yeah, that's probably a fucking thing that actually did happen a lot of times. People were probably like, shh, because it was happening during like the fucking 60s. Me and Billy just talked about the Boston Strangler. And back then, women looked fucking. I did. Billy made a comment. I'm not gonna comment on it. Billy made, he's like, "Whoa, I wouldn't fuck any of those chicks." I was like, "Billy, that's not what it's about. Okay, these are old ladies." So startling but unnerved, the women assumed it was, it was no matter, whatever, and kind of resumed their work, like whatever. And then several minutes later, a second pole dropped. And I guess it scared the fucking living shit out of them. Finding this strange, they examined the ceiling, but that could see no reason as why to these two poles have fallen. And we'll maybe get into the theories of this, but maybe it was like an Indian burial ground or something like that. That's what they always blame it on. You know what I mean? It's like, they buried indigenous people here, and we just like kicked over the sticks that they made for gravestones, and then we built our house on top of it.
Yeah, that's a big one. And then over here, I suppose our version of that would be
Leprechauns?
like, no.
Built us built us a fucking home on a leprechaun
But
house.
it's funny because it's something similar to that whole like Indian burial ground where it was always
Fairy
like, oh,
mounds?
oh, it was built on like either something like that, or it was an old graveyard, or it was an old cemetery, and
You guys have
they
fairy
just like,
mounds, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like really though. I was like, can everything be built on a fucking
So I call
cemetery?
midget tits. Sorry,
Oh well,
fairy mounds.
you were thinking hard about that one, weren't you?
You kind of. I was
Yeah,
like, I
I
kind of did
seen you. I
joke on
seen
it.
the look of concentration.
They resumed their work and forgot about the fallen poles, and then became engrossed in conversation. You know how women are. I don't even know what the fuck
Stupid
they'd be talking
bitches.
about back then. Did you see Jerry today at church? His socks were like too high for his shoes. Like I don't even know what you'd be talking about.
Yeah, I was
Like, I
gonna
can't
say
even think of
something.
one
I
thing.
was gonna say something. I was like, why do I keep going back to the inbreeding thing? I need to stop.
Yeah. Suddenly, a third pole crashed in the midst of their conversation. Terrified. Now they're like freaking out. Be like, we were just talking about what clothes we were going to wash for the next 3 days and how Johnny soiled his pants yesterday. You know, the women dash out of the barn and into the house. Strange things continue to happen. Stones seemingly thrown by phantoms. This is such a weird case, too. Pelted the farmhouse until every window was shattered.
I was waiting for it.
That's weird, though. To me, like, we'll get into, we will talk about the Battersea poltergeist, and there'll be others that will come down the road that are more recent and stuff like that. Like, it would be kind of fun to see if we could find some poltergeist activity with the house. Maybe those stupid douchebags from Ghost Adventures covered something like that. That was more recent, but like a lot of these tales, like if you think of uh, the Bell Witch, that me and Juan covered way back in the day, stuff like that, where it's just like this time era where they can't explain what's fucking going on. They have no idea. There's no cause of this. There's not like today where you can explain away with all these different things. If
Hmm.
weird stuff is happening, there's people throwing stones through the window, and you literally can't find who it is, and nobody you would think would do that because kids are kids and they could be doing that stuff, but it was happening so often that it was like that they would run out there and there was nobody to be found. Not they couldn't explain this stuff.
Yeah, and I seen reports like where apparently there was a stream that ran like near the house or whatever,
Yeah,
and a few times after they noticed that the stones or pebbles they were all smooth,
yeah.
and they were always wet, so it was like okay, it's coming from the stream or the river.
Isn't that weird? Because the
So then
family
they
members
would,
examined the stones. Yeah,
yeah, and then I think I don't know if this is true or not, but I had seen stuff about them like marking certain stones
yeah,
and putting them back in, and
yeah.
then those exact same ones would be
It's fucking
thrown
creepy.
back in, which is a bit fucking weird.
Yeah, so scary. The roof leaked when it was raining. Mysteriously, little fires broke out all over the house. I can't do this. Scottish. I saw the house take fire upstairs in 10 different places at once, recalled William Fleury, who just lived up the road from the McDonald family. Once the earth moved the very foundation of the house. That's weird, though. Like if it like shifted in some regard, like if the house started shaking and it was only the house. Have you seen the movie about the Bell Witch? Because this
Hmm.
story does remind me very much of that kind. Because the movie does portray it pretty well. But is it people going crazy and maybe it's ergot in the bread, or is it actually them experiencing some full on
Like when people
crazy
talk about
poltergeist?
hoaxes and shit like that, like the Enfield poltergeist and different stories about like, and then they say, oh, it was a hoax, it was whatever, they were looking for fame or money or to sell the story. But
Yeah.
then you have to think like, this is back in fucking what, 1892 or some shit.
Mm-hmm.
What would your motivation be to create a hoax about being
100%.
haunted? Like I can't understand. Like it's
1829. So it's even like
like yeah,
way
like it's
back in
not
the
like
day.
you're gonna fucking ring TMZ and be like, "Hey, I have a cool story to sell."
Yeah, come follow me. I'm right here at this restaurant, like the
Yeah,
Kardashians.
like
Come take pictures of me.
and that's why I'm like, I can't understand. I had seen hoax come up here and there in different articles, and I'm like, but what's the motivation though for a
Yeah,
hoax?
I
Why?
understand that to have people. return to God. I don't even understand why. Like, but everyone
Like,
is
would that
always
not just make
religious.
other people like shit scared of you, or like not want to be like cursed by being around you, or maybe be like you could end up being an outcast there by telling people that you're like haunted or fucking whatever.
Yeah. I just think I brought up the wrong newspaper article. Sorry about that. That was a news article about aliens, UFOs in the 1950s. My bad. Something left from another episode, um, which is so fucking weird. So like, they're saying that the Earth moved and the foundation rocked, and only the McDonald house was shaken by this earthquake, which would scare the living shit out of me if I was
Yeah,
back
like I
then.
mean, I think if I was to put myself, and obviously I have no idea or no context, but like if we were to go by what we, I guess, know from these time periods,
Mm.
I think the last thing I would want to do is draw attention to my family and be like, hey, I think we're like haunted by like some poltergeist thing or whatever. So if the entire settlement wants to turn on us and like burn us at the stake or, cast us out into the woods or something like that, I mean, that's cool too. Like, I
Or
feel like this would be something you probably
would
wouldn't want.
avoid.
Yeah.
You would avoid it because it does remind me just because it's. I think the Bell Witch was a little after this. It does remind me of that. They were blaming it on the daughter or whatever, and thought that she was creating all these circumstances happening, like all these weird things that were going on around the house, and they were blaming it on the kids. And this has happened before in certain hauntings, and it's just like, well, what do they have to gain?
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, they want to be look like an outlier and someone who is. It could be like if you saw in the movie The Witch, where they're like casted out from the community,
Yeah. That's what I mean. Like,
ostracized from the community. Like I don't know why you would do that because you wouldn't want to look at as the weirdo. Everyone believes in the same bullshit, right? They're all fucking going to church every Sunday.
yeah. And like, I feel
You
like
know,
that very easily could backfire on you to the point where it's like, okay, let's kill all the women in this family.
hmm,
They're obviously all like witches or some
burn
shit,
them
or
at
you
the
guys are
stake.
like, yeah, like that could, I'm assuming that could very easily happen back then. So why would you even bother being like, it'd be really funny? Let's play with the fire here and tell everybody we're like cursed. And then, sure, look, if we all get killed, haha, that'll be a good joke.
Man, they had smooth skin back then. I doubt that's what
Yeah,
it's
I
gonna
know,
look
right?
like. Yeah, just look at the picture of this guy. So even so it was the only like pots and pans would start. They would crash onto counters and tables, which is strange. That would frighten me. Um, at this time of this trouble, reported local resident William Stewart, I lived about 3/4 of a mile from this place and was present and saw for myself many strange things. Mr. Alex Brown with the others took a number of lead balls that came in through the window, marked them and tied them in a bag and dropped them in the center of the channel Ecot. Don't know what that is. About 36 feet from the water in a short time, the ball came back through the window.
Which is a bit
Fucking
weird.
weird. And what is doing this? Some sort of strange, like if it is a poltergeist, that's fucking wild. That they're like marking stones or tying stuff into bags, and then it's like coming back through the window. And if this isn't a poltergeist, this is an extremely intelligent ghost. Because for people that don't understand, like right, poltergeist, why we I don't know the exact terms why we get that phrase. Maybe we'll eventually talk about it on the show. I don't want to Google it right now. Um, but the idea is like a poltergeist is something that's active. That's an active ghost that can manipulate objects, move things, throw things through windows. It's something that is very like there's residual hauntings, which are just imprints in time. I've said this before, and then you have just like normal kind of ghosts that maybe they move. They don't even move things. Most times you just maybe see them or hear sounds and movement and stepping on stuff and whatever. Like you hear like somebody walk up the stairs. But poltergeist can like throw shit across rooms and cause a bunch of ruckus. Did you look up?
What a poltergeist
Yeah.
is? Yeah. A type of paranormal phenomenon often associated with mischievous or disruptive activity. Um, they are believed to be the spirits of deceased individuals, thought to be manifestations of physical energy or disturbances created by living individuals, often
Really?
children. Um, the activity typically involves unexplained and often chaotic occurrences such as objects moving or being thrown, loud knocking or banging, furniture shaking, levitating, and even physical attacks, including scratching or biting. They tend to be temporary and usually happen in a specific location, often centered around an individual or a group of individuals experiencing severe emotional or psychological stress.
Hmm. So they're very active ghost, and I never want to experience one.
No.
I had a therapist when I was a crazy young teen. I've talked about him before, where he'd like listen to hip hop albums and try to relate to me. Therapy has done nothing for me in my entire life, but mushrooms have done way more than therapy and all the money that my parents probably paid for therapy, and stuff like that. And he claimed to have used a Ouija board that can move on its own. And when he did that, and him and his girlfriend were in Toronto, and they were using this Ouija board, cupboards started shutting, fucking things would be moved across the room, tons of shit. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to fuck her. That's like my worst nightmare. I've messed around with Ouija boards tons of times, and if that started happening, I wouldn't
It's
even
time
know
to
what
shit
to
your pants.
yeah. So I was present when the barn was burned, and also when a man by the name of Harmon was preaching there. At this time, a large stone came right through right through the door, breaking out one of the panels and rolled in front of the minister. The stone apparently had come out of the water. A search was made about the house, but no person could be seen. Also, I saw a loaf of bread move off the table and dance around the room. The owner of the house, John T. McDonald, I know is a very respectful man. I just picture what this guy sounds like.
So for anybody wondering, right, Tom has done extensive research into what Scottish people sounded like back then, and that's an exact representation. So in
Scottish,
case you're
gotta get my
confused,
haggis. I gotta get my haggis. I can't do a fucking Scottish accent. And Chelsea's stepdad is Scottish, and he
oh
has a
really?
pretty thick Scottish accent. I still can't do it. Scottish, gotta have my haggis.
So if he has so how long has he been in?
The picture for a while, a long time.
No, but how long has her dad been in Canada, or is he, like?
Stepdad, a long time, a while, but he came as an older man, so kind of the
Right.
accent always stuck.
So he still has that Scottish accent. Do you have
Mm.
a hard time then trying to understand him?
No, I'm actually kind of used to it. You'd be surprised how well I can adapt to accents. I worked with a Vietnamese dude that was here for 15 years, and his accent was thick, and no one else in the shop could understand what the fuck he was saying, but I could get bits and pieces of it, and I'd have to be the translator.
Did you just say the translator?
Yeah, yeah, it's the
I
Terminator,
didn't
but
know. I didn't know you were that way inclined, but okay.
yeah, it's the Terminator, but you know where I'm going. You know where I'm going. It's Arnold Schwarzenegger, but he's wearing a fucking wig and putting on makeup and being like, "I am a woman."
Yikes, that's a scary fucking vision.
Yeah, I know that guy hates freedom, so fuck Arnold Schwarzenegger, Nazi fuck. A new as news of these occurrences spread, hundreds of curiosity seekers from surrounding areas began to visit the house in hopes of witnessing the poltergeist activity firsthand. And this is cool because, like, to me, this does very much remind me of like the Bell Witch. That time of
Hmm.
and people came back and like were like be like, what the fuck is going on? And hearing about these stories and wanting to see the ghost. And this is in Canada. So even the Toronto Globe reported the events as they occurred. I think this might be one of the article. Baldoon curse again strikes after 100 years. Oh, this isn't different, but it's still, there was like newspapers writing about this shit. Like pretty wild that it was that famous. You know what I mean? So the McDonald's took advantage of this situation. So they did take advantage of it and profited as a tourist attraction until their safety was threatened.
Oh.
I went to my father to see what was going on at the Baldoon, but first I was very young at the time. H. Durlard later recalled. His name is H. Durlard. Nice. We saw
That's probably not it, but okay.
Drulard. Drulard. Drulard.
You're probably right, actually.
H. Drulard. We saw a pot. Rinse from the hearth. I don't know what that means. And chase a dog outside and all around the yard. It could not get away from the pot, for it would hit the dog and he would yell and howl with all of his might. That is fucking bizarre, dude. This guy
Yeah,
claims
it's like
to
scary.
they said a fucking, the one guy saw a loaf of bread dance.
Which is like it sounds kind of, yeah.
It's like fucking.
It sounds kind of comical and the same like the idea of a pot like following your dog around. But then at the same time, I'm like, if I seen that though,
A pot followed the dog and was harassing the dog. An invisible force was moving this object to harass an animal. That is fucking crazy. That's why I was like, when I was writing this out, because I was debating of what we should do and break up the alien content and some of the stuff that we've been doing and planning to do going forward and stuff like that. And I was like, it's been a while since we got into something like a haunting, and especially a more famous kind of poltergeist case. And I was like reading about some of the stuff where I was like, whoa, that's fucking wild. There's some of the events that took place during this haunting, and like Canada's got tons of haunting, but a lot of times like, to be honest, like we had a couple of fans that were like, "Oh, you should do more Canadian content," and I'm like, "Oh no, I try to fit it in there. Like time to time, I definitely try to slide in like Ireland because you're Irish, some Ireland stuff, some stuff with Canada. But there's a lot of crazy cases that come from the United States, and Britain and stuff like that too. But like Canada is there's a lot, but not as much as you would think there is. But in the
I would have
States,
always
it's like
assumed, yeah, there's a huge amount.
it's not as much as you would think because I actively try to look for Canadian content, especially like hauntings, and we got a decent amount of serial killers, more than people think, but it's not like the how infamous and detail oriented a lot of the cases to do with even like paranormal true crime stuff is in Canada compared to the States. It's a very different when it comes to like details of certain cases and stuff like that. But this one's wild. Like as a poltergeist, older kind of case, especially from this time era, it is. My brother made fun of me for saying error for era, so I've been purposely saying era.
I don't ever remember you saying that, but
Yeah, it's probably quick and conversation. Yeah, and for everyone, if you don't forget, I drink beer and smoke weed while I record these episodes, just so you are aware of my mental state, which is always positive. Okay? I'm not at the brink of suicide every time I wake up. Just kidding. Kidding. I love my life.
I am.
So, fucking weird. So the pot chased the dog around. I saw an old-fashioned butcher's knife pass through a crowd of 50 men and strike into a wall, the length of 10-inch blade. This happened in 1830. Who knows if this guy telling the truth, but man, this guy claims that he saw a butcher knife fly through a crowded area because obviously people were coming to see this haunted attraction, and then it's like, well, eventually I want to do an episode about the Fox sisters and how they probably all of their stuff was a scam, and there's many people like me and Billy, which people should take a listen to. It's a good episode. It hasn't got as much attention as I thought it would. Is the episode we did about ectoplasm. And that whole idea of it most likely being fake and stuff like that. And yeah, there's many people throughout history that have used ghost hauntings to accumulate wealth or profit off of it. But I don't see why these people would be wanting to do this. And the fact that if you had people showing up and you have a crowd of 50 people, wanting to, as a tourist attraction, wanting to see what happens in the hauntings in this place, and they see a fucking butcher knife fly through the air without anyone picking it up and throwing it, that's fucking crazy.
A little bit, yeah. And how do you get all those people to
Also say that it happened.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense, especially back then. Like it'd be different. Maybe
My
now you
sister will
could
give
say,
you
look,
a blowjob. Okay,
like
she's
people,
best blowjob in town.
like people might have. I feel like more to gain. Maybe if it was nowadays, you could say, well, this could be a big scam for views or money or whatever, try and sell a story. Like back then, it just seems so like counterproductive to be like, we want to be known as like the outliers, the fucking weirdos who were like
crazy people?
cursed and
Yeah.
like, because I again like we keep going back to the witch, but like I picture ending up in that situation if you were
Where
to
they're
do something
out,
like
yeah,
this. Yeah.
they're casted out. They're like, oh, you can have a plot of land on the outskirts. And it's fine because they never really reference why really they were kind of exiled, you could say, from the community. Um, but it would be like that, where you're just like, yeah, you're in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the woods, and you have a little community not far from you because most people lived on farms, and obviously that's how they accumulated wealth and ate and lived, was off of farming the land and all that stuff, and then obviously helping in town and doing stuff like that. Like I imagine that's what the lifestyle would be like. Like everyone helps each other out. You sell your goods, and then you kind of or you barter for things at this time where you're just kind of like, well, I'll give you this for that, I'll give you some vegetables for some meat, and then you have vegetable farms and then people that had cattle and all that type of thing, right? So like why would you want to put up a barrier so people be like, I don't want to do trading with him, he's crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense really. I can't think of any reason.
Man, I would love to do some just because we've done a lot of UFO shit recently. I would love to do a UFO case about some of the sightings from throughout history. Because imagine being in this time and you see some sort of floating craft and you're like, whoa. And then just like you're that crazy drunk in town ringing a bell.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know what I mean? So after a local Methodist preacher, Reverend McDorman, tried to exorcise the spirit, the poltergeist became more violent. Because I feel like you're fucking with it at this point where it's like, well, fuck you. Um, I'm now going to get more violent. Check this shit out. This is just a glimpse inside of what the house pretty much looked like.
How shit does that
The
look?
spindle and stuff. Isn't that wild? Look at that shit. This is what you lived in. There's a bed right there. For all our listeners, it like you see like a fireplace. It's like a old log cabin. You see just a little table that can actually fold up to a bigger table. Pots and pans. You have like a spindle. Like if you think about the thing that Sleeping Beauty pricked her finger on. Is that what's called a spindle? It's like where you weave yarn through. Pretty wild though, eh? If you just think, and it's like, look at this house. It's probably not as big as you think it is from just like the picture, you know?
It's
No basement.
yeah, like we really have no context. Like
I'm gonna go there. I'm
how
gonna find this place. I'm gonna go there. And I'm gonna
that'll
bring my
actually be
Ouija
cool.
board. I was trying to plan it out this summer, but it might not happen. Is going to the Black Donnelly house because that place is supposed to be haunted, and it's the same. Couple years later, not exact time era, but in the late 1800s. So they tried to exorcise the demons. We'll exorcise these demons. It became more violent. Healthy livestock suddenly began to die in the middle of the night. Horses dropped dead in their stalls. The ox died in the field while still connected to the plow. That's crazy. The hogs and chickens withered and passed away. Everything on this farm just died.
Which is kind of mental as well.
Kind of scary because how could you explain all this shit? You know what I mean? There's some things like you can explain away and have a skeptic mind, and you look like Wilson. We have a poltergeist kind of like a creepy image where it's like a guy putting his hands on the camera, and Aaron was trying to fit his face into the camera.
It always seems to be centered around me, like the Jimmy Savile episode.
Yeah, I know. Wilson! Stupid. But all this stuff is like the fact that all these things are dying. It's just very strange. And how did they explain this away? The family would awake in the middle of the night to the slow, steady tread of men marching in the kitchen.
That'd freak me out.
Weird. So like, or is this a place right where when the first settlers and people started like, which is not far off from when these people were coming here, right? Or is it the idea of residual energy and stuff like that too part of the haunting? Maybe it's just, I don't know, a land that was soaked in blood from bloodshed when people came over and started killing the indigenous people. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like that could be part of it is you're kind of on like cursed land. If the indigenous maybe cursed the land after destroying their teepees and all the stuff for their long houses and the stuff that they were doing, and like just like they were just living their own lives, and then the settlers came in, the Spaniards or the British or whatever, and destroyed their settlements to kind of bring in their own stuff, and because you want to, and no, it's also a weird thing, right? You know how it's like close to a stream, right?
Mm-hmm.
Running water, usually, especially in indigenous folklore, has to do with spirits.
I didn't know that.
You didn't know that? There's a big connection to running water and spirits. I won't look it up right now, but there is a deep connection to the idea of running water, and spirits and stuff, and how it's kind of connected, and they're right near a stream, and the indigenous consider this as like a big thing. So I'm kind of curious if that's part of it to some extent. Robert Baker, a Michigan schoolmaster. That's a nice name, eh? Back then. The town pedophile wasn't called the schoolmaster. But kidding. Who had a great interest in the subject of witchcraft. Of course he did. And tried next to exorcise the spirit by nailing a horseshoe above the front door of the farmhouse and invoking the Holy Trinity. The Holy Ghost.
Boo.
Are you religious, or is that the Holy Ghost?
I don't know. Over here, it was always in the name of the Father, the Son,
Son
the
and
Holy Spirit.
Yeah, the Father and Son. Yeah, yes. Not only were his efforts in vain, but the local authorities persecuted him for attempting to perform witchcraft.
Oh yeah, didn't that dude get a year in jail or some shit? But he ended up getting out.
Yeah, Mr. Baker was convicted at trial in a sandwich and sentenced to a year in prison.
See, there's why I don't think I'd be bringing up anything about poltergeists or hauntings or anything for fear that they might go, oh yeah, stone him to death or burn him alive or do something crazy.
I have to look this up. Convicted at trial in a sandwich. Is he like, they put him in between two pieces of rye and pour some mustard on him? Serial abuser. Robert Sullivan from a sandwich arrest. What does that mean?
I have no idea.
Sandwich. What does it mean? It means charged? I don't know. That's fucking strange. Because when I looked it up, it did bring up stuff on Google. It just doesn't give me the actual meaning behind it. Yeah, so they put him between a piece of rye and poured some pastrami on him and mustard. Sentenced to a year in prison. The lieutenant governor, however, heard his appeal and granted him a pardon on the 6th of May, 1830. And still, the hauntings continued. It became more violent. The baby screamed as his cradle rocked on its own volition, which is like, that's scary. Like
that's freaky.
That's a horror movie. And to be honest, with all the stuff that's accumulated over the course of this haunting and this poltergeist activity, I'm surprised this is not made into a movie.
That's true, actually.
It would be a well done one.
That's true.
It wouldn't need that much of a budget, right? Who's the guy that filmed The Witch? Get that guy to do it, because he could easily create you could just like this old school like log house, like literally they have depictions of the Baldoon house. Is everything okay out there? Okay, go away, Charlie. Get out of here, you fuck.
Oh, is the dog being a cool dude again?
Yeah, he's trying to harass the cat. Fucking story of my life. They're destroying all the paper fucking towel in the house.
Dogs are so annoying sometimes.
I know, and especially when we have a cat that I've had for my entire life, and he harasses her. This 100% could be a movie though, and the fucking baby screaming, and you walking in. Okay, you walk in, you're the baby screaming. You get up, you're like, "Fuck, man, baby's crying again." You get up and you walk towards the room, and then the cradle starts rocking, and like that would scare the living shit out of me. It was said that 2 men had to hold the cradle for the mother to rescue the infant. Isn't that crazy? That's crazy, eh?
It is, eh?
Hey, buddy
That's
boy.
probably the scariest part for me.
I know. You had a kid. You had an infant at one point. Imagine if you walked in, the cradle was rocking, and you had
I
two
don't know
men had
why
to hold it.
when it involves like fucking kids and cradles and shit like that, it just like
Not
freaks me
literally
out.
fucking kids.
No, no, not actually having sex with kids.
Guns went off while no one was holding them. Like honestly, like I've looked into a lot of poltergeist stories and weird ghost stories. This one is kind of wild. How much stuff they were claiming was occurring. Guns going off, like the ghost is sitting there and he's putting the bullet into it, and then it's like you see the gun getting like jerked off because you know how they have to like pump all the fucking gunpowder in it. Because literally, they had muskets and stuff back there. They didn't have no fucking action revolvers or.
That's what they had to do to get the white
Actually.
stuff to come out.
Don't we all? The fires broke out with increased frequency and became harder to put out, and the entire home burned to the ground. So we'll obviously get to how this house still stands. They probably replicated it. Lachlan McDougald, what a name. Lachlan McDougald, that's his name. Another child of the Baldoon settlement and Wallaceburg pioneer remembered the events well. I was up the river in a boat in the... Sorry, I went Mexican. I was going up the river in a boat in the morning in company...
This is falling apart. This impersonation.
I was going up the river in a boat that morning in company with James Johnson, Sr., obviously, and William Fisher. He said, when we were opposite the McDonald's place, we perceived that John's house was on fire. But as we were some distance from it, we saw that it would be gone before we could reach it. So they did see that it was in flames, but the time they reached it, it was crumbled to the ground. The family were at breakfast yet and not discovered the danger. Mr. Dan McDonald's house was nearer to us. As they saw the fire, they hailed us and asked us to assist them to carry out the furniture, as they expected that obviously their habitat, where they lived, would be in flames. We landed and helped them carry out everything. In the meantime, John's house and the barns were reduced to ashes. Together, with all they contained, the family barely escaped with their lives. So so this is kind of weird. So it's obviously from an actual, which is crazy. They actually have documented proof of these people experiencing this. They're obviously, the house is burning to the ground. People noticed it. Were like, oh shit. And then they were trying to get out as much furniture and things that they could keep as possible.
I don't know the whole, like...
It's a weird case. They said that frequently it started on fire. All the time.
I don't know. It's just like... And like none of it's like... I don't want to say like consistent with each other, but it's just like random events. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? Like it's... And like, again, like a really weird story to have to say like, oh, I saw a loaf of bread dance around the room. It's like, why would you even... Like, why pick that if you're like, if it's a hoax?
I don't think this is a hoax, bro. So pretty weird. We landed and helped them carry out everything. So in the meantime, it was reduced to ashes. They barely escaped with their lives. John came to us with his coat, saying that the clothes he had on were all he had saved. Pretty sad. It's pretty sad for John. They're building this house in the swampy area, taking the time to build his house, and it was reduced to rubble thanks to this goddamn fucking poltergeist. Not fun.
Poor John.
The community helped the McDonald's to replenish their losses they had suffered in the fire, and the family of 5 sought temporary refuge with John's brother-in-law while they undertook the effort to rebuild their log cabin. But no sooner had they taken quarters when a similar annoyances began to occur. So, like I said, a lot of hauntings don't really exist in the home, right? There's some place that you could claim are haunted buildings. And this is why I kind of believe haunted buildings most times would probably be residual energies, where it's a crazy event, something that is traumatic that would imprint on the reality that we live in, right? So, and it might be a residual haunting if people see things move or hear sounds or whatever, right? And it just could be sounds and movements of this traumatic event that happened, right? But poltergeist and actual spirits and demonic possession and kind of all uh, real like legitimate hauntings, usually like if they are a living or dead or alive spirit kind of thing. Alive, I mean like on another reality, and dead, I mean someone who's passed on that maybe kind of grabs onto you and your family. Most times they will follow you where your family goes. And we eventually talk about on Class Horrorcast, we do get into some of the Conjuring films, which we'll probably do like a huge deep dive eventually on the whole Conjuring franchise and stuff like that. Like that shows me, right, how it's attached to the person usually. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, which is like it's nearly freakier. Like because if I thought it was as simple as either just leaving the house or even burning my own house down, and
Yeah.
then you realize it's like, oh no, that doesn't even work.
Um, yeah, when I used to use the Ouija board, well, a couple of, I would say it's probably like 6 years ago at this point. I was playing the Ouija board with my stepbrother, and I don't know what I asked. It something like, "What do I have any spirits attached to me?" And it said 9 spirits were attached to me, and that some were good and some were bad. Scary, eh?
Freaky.
Yeah, and then and I like it. This is wild because it was my Ouija board. I wasn't fucking doing anything or manipulating it. Trust me. I don't know. I can't like it might be my subconscious or whatever, but it wouldn't work. Like it was me, my stepbrother's friend, and it would not work when they just touched it by themselves. And then as soon as I put my fingers on it, like, and I the whole point is to do it very lightly, and it would start moving like crazy, like spelling out stuff faster than I would even be able to communicate my brain to spell out, even if I was trying to hoax it and scare them or something. You know what I mean? As soon as like it wouldn't work, and as soon as I put my fingers on it on the planchette, it would just go off like fast, too.
You're cursed then. There's something attached to you. Something
I
scary.
probably think it is. The more mushrooms I do, I feel like I'm cleansing myself of these like demonic entities.
That's what it wants you to think, Tom.
I know. I know, but recently on my mushroom trips, the one thing I've taken from one of my trips recently is that there is definitely some sort of evil force that takes over this world. Every time I've done them recently, it's like there's some evil energy that has taken over this world at every angle, and I can feel it, bro. I can feels it.
I don't know if that's a good thing.
Yeah, me either. So crazy. So obviously weird stuff start happening now at his like brother-in-law's house, and after several little fires spontaneously broke out, the McDonald's were forced to seek shelter somewhere else, fearing the brother-in-law's house would burn too. He's like, "Can you fuck? Okay, all right. I'm trying to help you. Trying to be a good brother-in-law. You know, you take care of my wife." Or my sister, same thing back then. It's just like, and
That
it's
was
like,
I like that.
fuck. And then you're like, literally, you're like, oh, you have to leave. I don't want your house to burn down too. And it's just like, well, you gotta live outside, I guess. A strange activity followed the family. Wherever the family went, these weird activities followed. As for a period of time, they lived like nomads, which is like traveling from place to place, unable to find any solace. Finally, they gathered up their old sails they could find in the neighborhood and rigged up a tent to shelter them. I was actually gonna say they probably should just go with a tent and a little fire, and then do it outside of the tent, and hopefully your tent doesn't burn down. Live like the indigenous people that you murdered.
Again, it just doesn't make any sense to make any of this stuff up and end up having your life even worse than it was. Like, I know
I
it probably
know.
wasn't a glamorous time to be alive, but like to from living in a house like that to living in a fucking tent.
I know. Some poltergeist follow you wherever you go. So pretty wild. But they could not live like that for long. Obviously, once winter set in, even the haunted log cabin was preferably, obviously they preferred it rather than to the frigid tent. And after the family moved back indoors, John resumed all efforts to remove the poltergeist, seeking counsel from the Protestant missionaries, the native medicine man. So they even like obviously talked to the indigenous people, and we're like, I don't know what to fucking do. I'm sorry that I like killed more than half your people and took over your land, and I know your great grandfather probably like lived on this spot, but like it's mine now. But can you fucking help me? Everybody like, and they cursed him even more. Who knows? But Catholic priest too, nothing worked. But the Catholic priest did get never mind. Then John learned from a traveler about a doctor in Long Point. I actually wonder how close this is, because I've been to Long Point. I've stayed there in a cottage in Long Point, about a town 18 miles away. Weird. I've never even heard of Wallaceburg. Strange. I'm gonna have to find this place and find this fucking house. Daughter who was said to be supposedly she was possessed with the gift of second sight. Reverend McDorman accompanied John on the 2-day journey to the house of Dr. J.F. Troiner. Upon their arrival, they implored him to allow them to have a talk and have kind of consultation with the 15-year-old Dinah. If that's pronounce it, probably Dinah. The girl listened to John's miserable stories, and what a weird time where you would have, where they allowed. This is like a 15-year-old girl that supposedly has like sight, and they maybe it was like Joan of Arc type of sight, which eventually I'd like to cover on the show, of like this idea of like a young girl that had premonitions that were fairly accurate, and then so I'm surprised though that she wasn't drowned in a lake or burned at the stake. You know what I mean? Kicking rhymes all day, bro.
That was the thing. Like that was the first thing that came to my mind. Was like, obviously, all these people were going to be like tied up and fucking stoned to that or whatever.
Yeah. Well, surprising that they're like, well, she has her visions are not against us though. Like, you know, she's not casting spells on us. And you can't point to her that, you know, I don't understand how they like, because there's so many cases of them burning women at the stake or drowning them or doing horrible things to them, stoning them to death. Obviously, it was more likely that they were drowned actually than they were actually burned at the stake. That's more of the thing that they did in France. But it's surprising that they were like cool with this chick though, because maybe she said she loved God. You know what I mean? Maybe it was like because she was like more religious and having these premonitions that they were cool with it. But the women that were not really religious and labeled heretics and stuff like that, maybe that's, you know what I mean? Maybe that's like, so they're like fucking, they're not about the church life, worshiping that false idol that we, just kidding, everyone's gonna get mad at me for that one. You know?
You're gonna get cancelled for that one.
Yeah, by the Christians. So she listened. You know, Miss Troiner emerged from her chambers exhausted, disheveled. 3 hours later, it reported that the old woman who had lived in the long log house sought to drive the McDonald's from their property. So we've got a witch on our hands. This said... This said, Miss Troiner was the source of all of John's difficulties. She asked John if he had seen a stray goose wandering his farm since the troubles had began. Honk. After he replied that he had, this is the fucking wild story. This is where it gets wild. Okay. So they're like, "Have you seen a wild goose on the chase? Have you seen a honk honk? Have you seen this goose?" And you know, they wandered around the farm since the troubles began. After he replied, he had been seeing a strange goose in his flock now time and time again. He would kind of see now again. He would see this like goose hanging around for some time. Miss Troiner told him to shoot it with a bullet cased in solid silver, for lead would do it no harm. So this is like a werewolf trope.
So, for me personally, this is where like the story I'm kind of like, huh.
What do you mean?
I don't know. It's just like I don't know. It's just strange. Like it's such a bizarre story. It doesn't really follow many of the like I don't know, like
Other
cliches or
hauntings?
whatever. Yeah, it's just like so like fucking dancing loaves of bread and pots chasing dogs around and now this red-eyed fucking thing and
It's not red eye. I just added that. I created that image for us. So for the audio listeners, it's a goose with red eyes, and he's honking right in Aaron's face.
oh yeah, he is actually. I never even again see.
Yeah,
It's always
always
directed
you.
towards me.
This one looks scary. I wouldn't want to fuck with this guy. Yeah, this is like, as I was saying, this is one of the stranger poltergeist hauntings that I've covered on the show. When it comes to how, we've covered tons of stuff. Even the Battersea poltergeist, a lot of weird stuff did happen. I agree, but even this stuff is farther way back in time and seems even stranger from some of the things that did occur by some sort of spiritual force. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Nah, I mean, strange. So, they insisted, obviously, is, they got to kill this fucking goose, man. They got to kill the golden goose. He's not gold, but the demonic goose. They got to kill it. The girl insisted that the old women would be similarly wounded. So, as weird as it is, it's kind of like when me and Juan talked about the witches' familiars. Recently, actually, we talked about the familiars of witches, of like the toads and, how they have cats and dogs and all that stuff, and they use them to do their bidding and they possess them in some sort of way. So is the goose one of the witches' familiars? Just maybe. Maybe she possessed the goose and the goose is starting to do all the stuff,
It's such a fucking weird thing to pick, though.
It is a weird thing. Like a toad, like the idea of the toad, go back and listen to that episode of me and Juan, is like it like whispers in your ear. So it's like, it's like, I saw Aaron and he was like jerking off to tranny porn, and it's just like, it just tells you like secrets of people.
That even sounds a bit cooler to me, to be honest.
Yeah, so having something sit on your shoulder. Like,
How did he know that, though?
Secrets into your fucking like ear, you know what I mean? And then you have like a dog can like be your protector and watch over you, you know what I mean? Or a cat can kind of like maybe listen in on conversations. There's always a purpose for each kind of animal. What the fuck is a goose doing?
That's what I was just gonna say. What's the
Just
purpose
shitting
for
all
that
over the
dumb
property.
motherfucker?
It's leaving like fucking shit nuggets, like just like poopy, like just poop nuggets, and they're like poisonous. Every time he steps in the poop nugget, his like shoe gets stuck, and it leaves him in this like.
Or does he just run after you with that head like that, screaming?
I've been chased by a swan. Those things are fucking aggressive. We were at this place. I was in elementary school. We're at like some sort of. It's called the Tim Hortons Camp, which is Tim Hortons is a coffee place. And I'm not a fan of them now because I'll talk about that on some other episode, but they're just not a good organization and corporation now. But we went to this place and there was like this goose, not goose, this swan, a big ass swan, and it would like it wasn't afraid of people and it fucking chased me, dude, and scary. Like they have like teeth and shit. Like there's like frightening, bro.
So you ran while this thing chased you?
I ran so far away from the swan trying to eat me.
I wish I could see that.
It frightened me. I was like 12 or
What kind of
11 or some
noise
shit.
did he make while he chased you?
I don't know what fucking noises swans make, but it was like fucking frightening. This thing did not.
I feel like
give a
that was
fuck.
pretty accurate.
They did not care about what the humans being around. So pretty crazy. So as they insisted the hauntings would end because the witch would be wounded if they killed this goose. As soon as John McDonald arrived at the home the next evening, he melted a piece of sterling silver into a bullet just as Miss Troiner had instructed. It's funny. It's a 15-year-old girl, and they're calling her Miss. Do you see? Because like at 16, she would probably be married. Is that creepy in some
A
regard?
little bit, yeah.
Like fucking a little weird because back then women, children, the teenagers were getting married, much like the Amish and the gypsies and stuff like that. Where they
You were
like,
saying though, weren't you saying
it's pretty
you
cool.
wish?
I know everything's pretty cool, Aaron.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, and you wish you could go back to that.
Yeah, but like
Has
it
it
is.
become that obvious?
Yeah, yeah. I always try to besmirch my character. But like, hey, if you are dying at 30 or 40, it makes sense. To be honest, it does make sense back in that time era. Now that we live longer, you don't need to be marrying a 16-year-old. But back then, it made sense because you wouldn't live that long.
So, for example, if I wanted to commit suicide within the next few years, technically speaking,
Could you marry a 16-year-old?
yeah,
Talk to Jimmy Savile about that. We'll get a
right,
Ouija board
okay.
out and we'll figure out what he thinks about it.
Oh, holy Mr. Savile.
That's right. So, rifle in hand, he searched for the goose in the field, and he sighted at the first sight. He fired the silver bullet directly into its black wings. The goose gave a shriek like a human being in agony. That's all I could do. Sure.
That was pretty good.
And escape through the reeds. So it's just like, but sounds like a human. So it's like, and it like runs through the fucking field, which is weird. It runs into the reeds. So he like, as soon as he sees this thing, and it could have been, how do you know it's the goose?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
How do you know it's the goose, the one that's been fucking haunting your home? How do you know? So in the
Like,
next
does it
day,
have like human legs or a human head or
I would
something
not
like that?
like that. Have you ever heard of Baba Yaga? Oh, go back. Everybody, listen to me and Billy cover Baba Yaga, which is like a Russian witch. And she has a house that has chicken legs, and the house can move to different places. Are you Googling it right now?
Why does that sound really familiar though?
Bro, Baba Yaga is weird. Go back and listen to that episode, everybody. That's only audio stuff. There's a lot of episodes that are only audio, not for YouTube, because it was before we were doing video content. And it's a fucking wild case, dude. Like literally, this witch had a house that she could convert to like chicken legs, and she would kidnap children. And
Whoa, that shit looks freaky.
are you looking at it?
That's giving me fucking goosebumps.
Is that weird, dude? There's like a live special just on the Baba Yaga. There's like more stuff that we'd cover because it's like a pretty extensive like folklore about Baba Yaga. Pretty weird.
There's a movie about that.
Is there?
Yeah, The Terror of the Dark Forest came out in 2020.
Oh, we should try watching that shit. It's probably horrible. We'll do a commentary on it on Class Orcast. So the weird next day, John and several of his companions ventured past the long log house owned by the elderly Miss Buchanan. So she was living in her own place. She's fucking got nothing to complain about. The old woman sat on her front porch, and she was in an agitated state, nursing a broken arm. No more supernatural manifestations disturbed the McDonald's property thereafter. So weird, dude. Isn't that crazy? And the bullet, listen to this. He shot this goose, and if she was a witch, she was maybe, she was like kind of manifesting into this goose creature, and then causing harm upon this family. And the same bullet in the same side of the wing that shot the goose was the arm that she was nursing. Like is that weird?
That is
If
kind of
that's true.
freaky. Yeah.
It sounds like a movie. That's I'm like, how is this not a movie, dude? The goose part would be like everyone watching the movie would be like, oh, that's fucking cheesy. But then this is what they claimed happened. You know what I mean? If you were going to keep it super factual, like this is what they claimed. That's what's such a wild story.
That is like, that would be freaky.
Yeah. And you like go up to her house and you're like, wow, that little 15-year-old girl that's going to get married next year just fucking knows her shit.
Would you not just though, if you came across her, then would you not just shoot her in the head?
Yeah.
Like, there you go, crazy bitch.
Well, after all the things that they've endured, I would think that you might want to take
Yeah, I think
justice
I'd
in
be
your own hand.
probably gone fucking nuts, and I'd be like, yeah, I'm just gonna shoot her in the head just to make sure.
As the story passed into history, eyewitness testimonies from prominent local figures lent the tale and the credibility and assured that the continued spreading of its fame. 40 years later, Neil MacDonald, John's youngest son, interviewed 26-year-old local villagers who had witnessed the haunting. He collected their statements and published them in them serially, which is a weird word, in the Wallsburg News. Afterwards, the story were also collected into a booklet and published under the title The Baldoon Mystery, an intriguing story of witchcraft near Wallsburg, Ontario. It would be cool to have this in my collection. But yeah, Baldoon Mystery, unsolved after years. And they put this within newspapers. Pretty crazy. December 22nd, the cuss of the Baldoon striking and destroying after 100 years. It's crazy. And this mysterious midnight fire, the infamous haunting house, according to legend, to withstand, obviously, all these supernatural flames. Evil spirits would drove the McDonald family from the house. Crazy. Such a crazy case, though. The story continued to circulate into the 20th century. In the 1920s, the Northern Navigation Grand Trunk Route offered day cruises from Detroit to Chatham abroad. The Thousand Islander steamship, when the ship passed through Wallaceburg on the Sennial Ecart, I don't know what the fuck that is. Deckhands were quick to point out the haunted house to the enthusiastic patrons. The Baldoon Mystery soon became one of Ontario's most famous ghost stories, securing a long-lasting legacy for the little Scottish settlement. Pretty wild, man.
Dun, dun, dun.
A wild case. Pretty crazy. We definitely went longer than I thought we would, as we do with most of these
Sure,
episodes.
that's the poltergeist doing that.
And it is taking hold of my bladder as I'm sitting here having to pee after 4 beers.
Oh, it's funny. I since 38 minutes on the roadcaster, I've been feeling that, and we're now at 151.
You'll be fine. So yes, everybody, this was a wild case. I think it's pretty genuine. You know?
Yeah, like I've said it probably since the start, but my thing with it, I always try and look for, because I like to look at both sides, and I think sometimes it's interesting to say like, yeah, well, that's probably this or it's probably that, but like, it just seems like I just can't understand the motivation to make it up.
No, neither do I.
Doesn't make sense.
And this is probably, and I will attempt to go visit this place at some point. Probably with Billy or something like that. I will film at this place at some point. I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna figure out, because it shouldn't be that far from me. And we'll do a little thing. I got like portable mics and stuff like that we can take that actually can plug into my phone. And there's stuff that's coming from Stranger Podcast. That's pretty good. We just got ads for Advercast and stuff like that being played. So my brother's like, well, where are they? And I was like, I don't know if they're being played on Spotify, but we got ads going and stuff like that now. So pretty exciting stuff. And the best way to support us, we do this show primarily for free, is Patreon. There's tons and tons of content on Patreon. Lots of shit. So go to patreon.com/strangerpodcast and support the show. Buy merch. The new merch design is out.
Yeah, I need to get that.
It's a dope design. I would love you to rep it.
I love it.
And show all the Irish people what it's about to be part of one of the best podcasts out there. But
I think I need to get the shirt and the
flag is sick.
Yeah.
I love my sweater. Everything looks pretty decent. I'm gonna leave up the 2 different sites. TeePublic, I would suggest for like mugs and cups and tumblers and all that stuff. But I'm gonna put up TeePublic also. Because TeePublic, their shirts are more well designed in my opinion, and they last longer. and stuff like that. Because and we're gonna eventually be on Redbubble and all that stuff. I'm just gonna put it everywhere, and then people can kind of decide. I'm gonna do like 3 merch shops, and then people can decide what they want to go with. And I feel like that's the best bet. I really want to get a First Class Horror shirt. If Aaron doesn't mind, we make like no money off the merch, but I will probably put it on a shirt. Considering I just want the straight up design with the skull. I think it's like a perfect simplified design. We have lots of stuff coming. You know what I mean? On both sides.
Literally, like cum.
Yes, I have
Like
to fucking
come
pee so bad,
in.
man. All right.
Me,
Well,
me too.
everybody love everybody.
My Baldoons are hurting me. I've been waiting for 2 hours to say this.
I like that. That's fucking funny. I'm gonna start calling it balls of Baldoons. All right, everybody love everybody. Keep yourself strange. Support the show. 5-star rate and review. Yes, I'm going to piss myself. So let's end it there.
Me also.